But when I go to the gym, I want to look like The Rock. And then when I run an ultra, I want to perform like an ultra runner. I don't know any of their names. And when I cycle in here, I want to be as good as one of those skinny Tour de France guys. I don't know their names either. I've got to follow somebody other than The Rock. This video was supposed to be made at the end of my 8-week fat loss journey, which actually ended over a month ago. The original plan was real simple. I would diet for 8 weeks and after that showcase my 6-pack abdominals, compare myself to the daily photographs I've been taking throughout the process, and then go off and get married in the best shape of my life. But it didn't happen. The getting married bit did, but the 6-pack was absent, as you're going to see in a bit. Now, I had thought that my knowledge around training and diet, the motivation of my wedding coming up, the accountability of putting it all on here, and the 8-week time frame that I'd give myself would all add up to me achieving my 6-pack goal. It never even crossed my mind that anything other than that would happen. I knew exactly where I was, I knew exactly where I wanted to be, what I wanted to look like. It was simply a case of progressing from the before pictures to the after pictures. So the reason this video is about 4 weeks late is because it's taken me that long to get my head around how I feel about that failure to do something that I'd assumed would be relatively straightforward. But I have got my head around it, and let me start by explaining the title of this video. If you set out to achieve a physical look that would mirror one that you've seen on Instagram or on here or a website for a supplement company, wherever, and you achieved it, well done. This video's title doesn't really apply to you, but I have a suspicion that the vast majority of people will have failed, like me, to get exactly the body they wanted. And anyone about to attempt such an achievement will probably fail too. I may be wrong, but my guess is this video's title is, for most people, spot on more often than not. So I'm going to break this down into 3 bits. My original expectation of what I thought I would end up looking like and why, despite it being an expectation that millions of other people have, it was ridiculous. My process, what I did and what I could have done better, and my results, and why they mean that the word failure is probably too negative, because this is still positive, I think. So my expectations, this was my biggest mistake and the one that is a massive issue right now for so many people. I had looked to social media as a guide to what I should be able to achieve. A 47-year-old man old enough to have been playing video games when Mark Zuckerberg was in nappies, and I was still sucked in like a child, lapping up whatever bullshit TikTok throws at them. Fitness YouTubers, people on Instagram, the supplement companies' adverts, they fueled my expectations because I made the stupid error of perceiving those people as normal. They're everywhere, right? Loads of them. They must be normal. If they can look like that, I can look like that. No, they are not normal. They all have something about them that is very unusual. Let's take a step back. Here's the problem. When I was 16, I played basketball. There were only 2 places I looked for inspiration about how good I could be. The people I played with and the NBA. That was it. There was nowhere else I could look. And even as an idiot 16-year-old, I knew that I could dream of being better than Michael Jordan, but I was better off focusing on being better than Michael Jones because he was the other tall kid in our school and I wanted his place on the team. So I had dreams, but not unrealistic expectations. Whereas today's kids will jump on YouTube and see what they perceive as loads of other amazing 16-year-olds playing basketball. Kids that are throwing down dunks in their high school games, kids that are hitting shot after shot like they can't miss. And the mistake that they can make is to think, as I did with people's crazy physiques online, that what they're seeing must be normal. They'll think, well, those kids aren't in the NBA, they're kids just like me, and there's loads of them. Why would I want to set my sights on the realistic objective of bettering my teammates when I can set my sights on being just like this kid who has 6 million views? Perfectly normal. Let me explain something obvious that even now I have to keep reminding myself of. If someone is on social media with any sort of following because of how they look or how they play basketball or anything else really, they have something that most people don't have. I'll explain what in a second, but they are not normal. That's why they have a following. If everyone that went to the gym had 9% body fat and massive ripped abs, showing them on here would be as pointless as uploading a video of a 100-pound deadlift and expecting it to go viral when my mum could do it. What you see on here that is popular, or Instagram, or gets shown by a protein shake company, is the peak of the peak. Now you might think they're normal and everywhere because in their YouTube videos you see them getting out of bed and they're making a coffee and they work out in the gym that's a bit like yours and they might grab a McDonald's from time to time. They could be the guy or girl next door. but they aren't. Well, they are, but they're only that to the 2 people that literally live either side of them. To the other 7.8 billion of us, they aren't. They are few and far between, and you are only seeing them because of that. Now let's be clear, it is possible that the thing or things that makes them unusual, that sets them apart, may be something that you have too, in which case you might be the odd person that I spoke about at the start for whom this video's title doesn't apply. But in that case, you aren't normal either. You should probably start a YouTube channel. You do really well. Because most people don't have that thing. And what is that thing? Well, maybe it's elite genetics, which is down to pure luck. Maybe it's a background in sports and training from a really young age. It could be a level of mental focus way outside the norm, or a life, work, family situation that allows them to train in a way that most can't. Or maybe they just embrace using performance enhancing drugs in a way that others might not be comfortable with, or something else. But whichever of those ingredients they possess, and they probably have more than one on the go, they have it in abundance and it stands them out from the rest. Being motivated by that is great, but having an expectation that you can emulate their achievements and results is daft. Even those before and after average Joe pictures that you see on Facebook or somewhere, where some fitness online magazine says, hey, look at what this guy did. 8 weeks and he's ripped to the bone. He must be typical, right? No, that's why you're seeing it. They want you to think it's typical because you'll then buy the product behind it, whether that's by simply clicking on the link or literally buying the product, the pre-workout or the training program or whatever it else is they're pushing. But it's the opposite of typical. Don't believe me? Go outside, look at people, realize that I'm right. If there is one thing to take from this video, it's that if you are looking at or listening to somebody with any degree of following, they are outside the norm, including me, as I'll come on to. So back at the start of my 8 weeks, my expectation that I would have fitness influencers abs at the end of it, I was going to say that's as daft as the 14-year-old of me wanting to look like Arnold. But actually the 14-year-old me was intelligent enough to realise that looking like Arnold was unrealistic. So unrealistic expectations aside, how did the 8 weeks actually go? It was tough. Counting calories is simple to do in that it's not complex, but it's tedious. You either stick to the same stuff over and over, which I did a lot of, or you get used to looking at labels and annoying your wife by asking how many grams of rice she just put on your plate. It is not a carefree way of eating. Now, arguably, we should care about what we eat, but either way, for me, it was a change to what I was used to, which is a more sort of intuitive way of eating. But if I do that, I can't drop weight intuitively. I can maintain weight, but reduction requires effort and focus. I did incorporate processes that made it simpler, like intermittent fasting, reduce the time spent eating, reduce the chance of eating too much, but the bottom line is the amount of calories going in needs to be monitored if you want to run at a deficit. The exercise side was a mixed bag. Some of the things that I do, the cycling in here for example, and the running, that has helped a lot by just being lighter. I am simply faster and hammer my body less if I weigh less. But then having the energy to do those things in the first place is harder when you're trying to balance it with eating less. So I'd be jumping on the bike in here, flying along with my new lightweight rider, but then getting exhausted if the ride was over 20 minutes. On a long run, I actually passed out at one point, and that was part heat and dehydration, but there's no question, working out in a deficit is not a great time for feeling great. And it was made even worse by my doing conflicting activities and wanting to be great at all of them. I've got a whole other video in the works on this, but when I go to the gym, I want to look like The Rock. And then when I run an ultra, I want to perform like an ultra runner. I don't know any of their names. And when I cycle in here, I want to be as good as one of those skinny Tour de France guys. I don't know their names either. I've got to follow somebody other than The Rock. And I'm gutted when I'm not those people. So I'm lacking energy. I'm chasing an unrealistic long-term goal with in-the-moment expectations that are also falling short and also unrealistic and pointlessly negative because I never stopped to see the positives. That, for example, The Rock would have a seizure if he ran a 5k park run at my speed, let alone 100. And it would take the ultra runner and the cyclist to team up and still need 3 mates to pick up my deadlift. For a YouTuber preaching, be delighted with getting above average, I'm as guilty as anyone of not always spotting and appreciating where I already am that. On the upside with training, stuff like long bike rides and runs with reduced calories is actually good to encourage the body to burn through fat reserves rather than rely entirely on stored carbohydrates, so that's a positive. And the lower energy levels have actually encouraged me to focus on stuff like getting enough sleep and rest and monitoring my heart rate variability through my Garmin body battery measurements. So I've been more aware of looking after myself, and that's obviously all good too. What I could have done differently, and may even do at some point, is find a way to go beyond what fits into my life. Back to unrealistic expectations. What a lot of people who look great have is a work-life balance that helps that. And actually, here is where I'm outside the norm too. I have that better than many people as well. People often ask me how I balance training and YouTube and work and family, and the bottom line is that I have a job that lets me work out when I want. I have people around me that support me doing that. That is a massive advantage that I'm incredibly lucky to have. If I worked 9 to 5 and had a couple of little kids to look after when I got home from work, it doesn't make doing this impossible, but it makes it so much harder. But despite my situation already being pretty good in that regard, it's the easiest one to still manipulate further. For example, genetically, some people are going to be, say, predisposed to more or less prominent abdominals or more or less body fat stored in front of them than other people. That genetic helping hand is impossible to alter as it is for someone that's 5'6" to be 6'6". You're born with your genetics, but no one's born with a busy diary. You create that for yourself, and you can change that. Now, you may choose not to. It may be too great a compromise for you, but that's a choice you have in the way that altering genetics is not. For me, over the 8 weeks, the choice I could have made differently, it wasn't so much the free time aspect, but rather how strictly I stuck to the plan. So for example, Jen wanted a few nights out in London now and then, and I find it very hard to spend a couple of days in a city and not overindulge in some small way. Or large way. Even at home, we have a few film nights that tends to come with snacks. And what I did was A, because of my cravings, and B, in order to not be too much of the odd one out, was allowed myself here to have those treats and cheats and then try to compensate afterwards with fasting days or just a few days of very low calories or some real long cardio sessions or both. If I was going to try and push further towards the results I expected, this is where I would change stuff. No nights out to trigger those cravings, no movie nights, or have them but just ban the kids from having snacks so I'm not tempted. Tell Jen I'm eating super rigid and not to try any fancy new recipes because I want only 500 calories of boring food every dinner time. Would whatever I achieve be worth that disruption to me and the house? Who knows? Given I'm already in a pretty lucky situation regarding home life balance, I would be taking myself to a place arguably quite far away from normal. So does it even really fit with my channel's message, which is normal people can push themselves a bit harder to achieve above average results, and that small increase in effort results in a huge increase in satisfaction. So would chasing my six-pack dream further not really be about taking large increases in effort to achieve relatively small results? I'm not sure I will go further. So let's talk numbers. The ones that have hardly changed were the measurements that I took, things like waist and chest and arms and so on. Basically everything is just down a bit, 1/2 inch on the chest, 3/4 inch on the waist, arms and legs the same. But body weight is down 10 kilos from 104 to 94, and that's a fair lump, that's over 22 pounds. Now some of that will be water weight, inflammation, a tiny bit maybe muscle, but no doubt the bulk is the bulk, the fat, and I'm happy with that, given I didn't start grossly overweight. When I was, years ago, 20 odd pounds would have been nothing. I dropped 100 pounds just by going for 3k jogs. But as I said before, the higher up that ladder you go at anything, the smaller the jump from rung to rung becomes, even though the effort to make those little jumps can be extensive. One of the reasons I promote above average as an ethos is because that level doesn't actually require overtly extensive effort and sacrifice. So 10 kilograms without killing myself, still having some fun, still being able to perform athletically to a reasonable level, that's okay by me. And before I do the final photos, perhaps the biggest thing I got out of this was the setting of a new bar for myself. After I lost all that weight years ago, I went from just being someone that lived around 150 kilos to being someone that lived between 105 and 115. That meant I could go as heavy as this, just a couple of years ago that was, and this is where I would think, whoa, pump the brakes, put down the cake. That is better than letting myself get back to where I was, but it's still suboptimal. Now, 100 kilos on the scales, that's my whoa point.
Put that cookie down.
When I ride the bike in here and I grab some footage, I want to look like this. And if I don't, I stop and think. It's like when rock climbers stick a new bit of safety gear in and hook in, so if they fall, they won't fall further than that. That's what I've done. I've stuck in some safety gear at 100 kilos. I'm not falling back beyond that, unless something terrible happens. Could I push on down to 90 kilos and reset that safety at 94, 95? We'll see. I've got an ultra marathon in December. It'll be a lot easier at 90 kilos to run that, so maybe. It might be a compromise too far though, telling Jen I don't want to have any nights out for 6 weeks so I can run 2 minutes faster through a forest. That may not go well. Okay, let's do some photos. So this is where I got to after those 8 weeks, and even though it's been 4 weeks since then, I haven't really changed much at all. I might be a fraction heavier now than I was at the end of the 8 weeks, but there's not an awful lot in it. This is where I am. Clearly, I'm looking at the monitor, so forgive me. More lean than I used to be. There's no question about it. Top two abdominals are just about there. Where I notice it most is more underneath, this section under here. I can feel that there is simply less bulk there than there used to be. I also notice it on my legs as well. They simply became more defined than they were before I started. I did a couple of running races and noticed that my legs were looking, they're no bigger than they were, as I mentioned already, but they're certainly more defined with lower body fat levels. No question, upper body as well. I noticed in the gym when I'm wearing a string vest that I'm more defined. The shoulder area here is just much more defined than it was. So yeah, am I happy with kind of 1, 2, 3.5 pack? I don't know what you'd call that. I'm not unhappy. Is it as lean as I thought I would be? Is it as lean as I wanted? No, absolutely not. But is it above average leanness for a 47-year-old man? Yeah, it probably is. I'm happy enough. Was that interesting? Was it useful? I really hope so. Again, it is not the result that I thought I would be showing, but maybe it is the result that is most useful to be showing, given that what I wanted is out of reach to most people, as it was to me. This channel is not supposed to be, hey, look at me. It's look at me and try it too if you want. I'm having fun and feeling good doing it, so might you. It's not as catchy as look at me, I know. Anyway, I'm not sure if me having a rubbish time for weeks on end, trying to achieve something that I probably won't anyway, works for this channel. That's more, look at me, this sucks, I feel lousy. Any result that you see is unrealistic, I doubt you'll get them anyway. That's neither catchy nor appealing. Okay, I am out of here. Please like and subscribe if you've not already done so. I've got to go because dinner's being served up. I've got to go make sure Jenna's weighed that rice properly.